Something to write on?
Me? No, I'm okay. I'll use this.
Okay. I'll act like I'm offering, but I really won't be offering.
I'll just tell you, like, I brought my own paper, thanks.
I brought my own.
And whenever you guys want to start, you're good.
Normally I wouldn't have a messy desk like this.
Do you guys want me to leave and then walk in?
What's your name?
It's a girl version of Tyler.
Tyler is a girl's name.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
All the Tylers I know.
Named Tyler.
They're all way.
Yeah.
All the Tylers I know are girls.
I've only known boy Tyler.
Look, you're like Aubrey is a girl's name.
Aubrey
Tyler.
is a girl's
You
name.
could be like Taylor
What?
if you want to. If you wanna just
I'll be
put that.
Tyler.
Aubrey is a girl's name. Wait, do you know
Aubrey
a
is
guy
a-
named Aubrey?
I've got
He
like
thinks
2
that he
friends.
should be Aubrey.
It's actually my secret name whenever I go out.
My
Aubrey.
secret name's Marilyn, so
Everyone has secret names.
that's what I tell people when they're like, "Oh yeah, what's your name?" I'm like, Marilyn.
Marilyn, duh. Okay, I'll be Tyler. I didn't know that was a chick name. My bad. And you're right, Taylor would be such an easy girl version. Why am I?
Taylor is a girl name.
But Taylor can be a boy name.
Yeah,
Taylor's
it's
name
true,
Agnes.
it's true.
I went to school with, when I was in like middle school, there was 3 Taylors and 2 were girls and 1 was a boy. But we called him TJ, so. Oops. Don't want to be like, hey
That's
Taylor.
so funny. Okay, so my name is Tyler Sampson.
Okay, we can still like stand up and then act like you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Just don't shoot the door. Oh, you're shooting the door. We'll pretend like I'm just walking in. Okay. Hi.
Hi, I'm Casey Kraft.
I'm Tyler Sampson.
Tyler Sampson, I'm Kara Dickinson.
Nice to meet
Please
you.
call me Kara though.
Oh.
Would you
Yes.
mind Miss Sampson or Tyler?
Tyler's fine.
Okay.
Thanks for having me today. I appreciate you guys seeing me on such short notice.
Oh, no problem. Did you have any trouble finding the office?
A little bit. Your office is kind of in a really terrible area.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's okay. The directions were just a little different.
Oh, we'll have to make sure we get our secretary on that to switch things up.
So, is this your first time in the law office?
It is. It is. I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before.
Well, just to let you know that, or how did you hear about our firm? I'll just ask you.
I saw an advertisement on TV. You guys have a catchy advertisement. I thought, well, those should be my lawyers.
Well, thank you. We're glad you saw that advertisement.
Money well spent. So today there won't be a fee associated with today's meeting since it's the first consultation. I'm sure Brian, our secretary, told you that.
I brought my phone. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. So today we set aside 30 minutes for our meeting. If there, for any reason, it goes over or you feel like you missed something, we can always set up another meeting. If you can't get in touch with us, Brian will be happy to set up a meeting for us because he has all of our calendar and everything.
Okay, great.
So basically, first we're going to go over a few policies from the office. And then after that, we're going to hear your situation and everything that's going on. And we'll probably come back to a few things and make sure we understand everything clearly. And then go over any law that applies to your situation and what we can do to help you.
Okay, great.
Okay, so first, I just want to make sure that you understand everything that we say in this office is confidential. Feel free to look over that statement anytime. You don't have to right now. It's pretty straightforward and says that anything you say to Casey or myself or anyone else in the office, our secretary, will be confidential. And so don't feel like you have to hold anything back. Even if we all decide that us representing you isn't the best option, we'll still keep everything confidential. So don't worry that, maybe not to say anything if you're worried about that.
Okay, good. So no matter what, I mean, I have a big story here. So no
Okay.
matter what I tell you guys, you won't turn around and tell, my competitor or
No.
something like
Of
that.
course
Okay.
not. There's a few exceptions to confidentiality, basically like bodily harm or anything like that.
Okay.
Could be an exception, but from what you told our secretary, it doesn't really seem like
Right.
you have any of that situation. So another thing is that we're going to be taking a few notes just so that we don't interrupt you and you can get everything out, and maybe we'll come back and clarify a few things. And it's also good for our records to make sure that we can help you the best we can. Okay, feel free to take notes yourself.
Great, thanks.
Don't feel any obligation though.
Well, we know that you saw our commercial, but to tell you a little bit about us, we've been in business for about 10 years, and we actually worked together at a firm before this, and we specialize in like bankruptcy and family law and different like constitutional law issues, and so that's pretty much the work of our firm. Like we have some pretty prominent cases and things like that, but do you have any questions for us?
No, God, I'm excited. I'm glad to hear you guys have so much experience.
Okay, so if you would like to start telling us why you're here today and what you would like to discuss with us, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Okay, so I run a local newspaper. It's pretty small, but it's it's popular too. It's a small newspaper, but I get a lot of business, and the area that my newspaper is in, there's also 3 military bases that surround, kind of the area. Like my newspaper business is right in the center of all these bases. And so there's a lot of, military families and things of that nature. And so they read my newspaper. Like my newspaper is what they read, most of these families. And so what I've been doing the past few years is I have this gentleman, his name is Alan Jeffries, and he's stationed in Afghanistan right now. But what he's been doing, and we talk through the internet, he sends me stories, he kind of writes for me a little bit. He sends me stories of what's been going on in the Middle East. He'll send me some pictures sometimes, and we kind of talk like that. And then my stories, I'll publish them, and the community gets to kind of see what's going on with the military. Okay, so sorry I'm upset. This is kind of a nerve-wracking thing. He recently sent me this story, and my big what I'm here for today is I don't know whether I should run this story or not. It's kind of a big deal, and I'm afraid. It's kind of scary. I've just never been in a situation like this before. So Alan isn't the only person that writes for me. I've had other people like I've had a captain and another private that have helped me also. Just so everybody in the community can see public. I get a lot of public interest about what's going on in Afghanistan right now. Well, so I haven't heard from Alan. It had been about 3 weeks since I've heard from him. I usually hear from him about every 2 weeks. If it takes a little longer than 2 weeks to hear from him, I really don't think anything of it, because they're moving, they're in Afghanistan, the connection is kind of terrible sometimes. So, but it's been 3 weeks, I haven't heard from him. Finally, I did hear from him. Well, actually, first, before hearing from Alan, I got really afraid, because it's Afghanistan, and I haven't been over there, but I'm sure it's pretty scary. I got in touch with his captain, and I was asking, do you know where Private, and I just call him Private Alan, do you know where Alan is? Have you heard from him? I'm this newspaper, I'm supposed to be in touch with him, and he told me that Alan left. He cited personal reasons, and he took a military transport over to Germany. And so nobody in his, in his group has heard from him or anything. And so nobody knows where he is, nobody knows if he's okay, but that's a little besides the point. I got really scared and everything, but finally I got this package on my door, and I obviously, live around the corner. I got a package in front of my door, and it wasn't marked, like there was no postage on it. It looked like somebody had just dropped it off themselves. And so I think it was Alan, because when I opened it up, it was, it was a note from Alan saying, please print this story immediately. It's really important. And so like there was, some urgency there. And so I opened the story and it's like a 6-page story, which is longer than he normally writes from me, but it's a pretty crazy story. So finally, after reading the story, and I won't get into too much details with you about it, but it's some scary stuff. And, it's kind of our military breaking rules and doing bad things to the civilians in Afghanistan. And so, he told me, please run the story, it's important. I called his captain again to ask, is this story true? Do you know anything about this? Because it's a crazy story. And he told me, no, I don't have any knowledge of this, but, he was really, really cooperative, and I told him, I'm going to run this story. Do you have any more information? Like, do you guys want to comment as the military? Do you want to comment before I run this story? And he said, don't run it just yet. I'm going to look into some facts to see if this really did happen or where Alan could have gotten this information from, whatever. And so then a couple days ago, I haven't heard back from the captain, and he's in Afghanistan, right? A couple days ago, these guys came to my door, and they were, banging on my door, and they were asking, I forgot to tell you, in the box also, in top of the story, there was, video recording.
Oh.
Of, not video recording, but, sound recording. Right. Of the events that Alan wrote about happening.
Okay.
And so, the recording is kind of messed up at some parts, but you can definitely hear, things that Alan describes were definitely happening. Well, so these people showed up at my door and they told me, and I made 3 copies of it, but I haven't told anyone that.
Okay.
So I'm glad you mentioned the confidentiality, because that's definitely between us.
Right.
I made 3 copies of it, and I happened to have one of them at my house when these men came, and they were government workers. I'm not sure from where or anything. They kind of were very scary. They told me that that this incident never happened. They have no idea what Alan's talking about. They were asking me where he is, how to get in touch with him, and I told them that I don't know, I have no idea how to get in touch with him, which is a lie. And then they asked for all of my evidence that I had of Alan's story. So I didn't give them anything except one of the copies of the recording. And so I was telling them, I was really scared, but I was telling them, this is all I have, and, that's that. And so they told me that I better not run the story. There will be some serious consequences if I do, but there's a lot of evidence that, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, evidence or anything like that, but, I have a paper that Alan wrote, I have this recording, this voice recording of what he's, is happening in conjunction with his story, and I think I have enough evidence to run it. And one of the big things about my newspaper is I live in a military community. So all these military families, the story might upset them, if it's the wives of their husbands or the husbands of their wives doing these acts, but they need to know. And I think that other people who maybe even aren't involved would want to know. So I'm wondering, can I get in trouble if I run this? What kind of repercussions are there going to be if I do choose to run this story? Am I going to get in trouble? Is there any way my newspaper can suffer from it? And, I kind of want to know what you guys, if you were in my position, what would you guys do? This newspaper is my business. This is my life. And this is such a huge story. It could definitely be a career-altering, total change for me, which I desperately need, in a good way. So.
Well, could you tell us more about the story? Because that's gonna, the content of the story is something that's gonna matter between whether we would recommend you go ahead and running it or not. That's gonna matter.
Sure. And I'm glad you guys reassured me it's, just
It's
between us.
confidential. Yeah, we're not gonna
So,
go print it.
I appreciate it. Okay, so basically what Alan told me is that there was, they were staying in some city in Afghanistan. They went to a neighboring city and at nighttime, and the military they were raiding this village. I should say, not a city, a little village, and all these people lived in huts. And Alan showed up with the other guys, but when he got there, he didn't know that this was going to happen. You know, they told him as they were going to the raid, this is where we're going. But they didn't tell him anything that was going to happen. And so they told him to stand back, watch guard, and everybody else went and, started searching the village. Well, Alan stayed back like he was told, but then he started hearing screams and gunshots, and, fire was breaking out. It was just total mayhem. So Alan finally, his intuition, I guess, he started walking over and just checking out the huts. He was armed, but he was armed with the basics. He didn't have anything, an extra gun or, anything like that. And he went to the back of some of these huts, and he found 4 women that had been raped and murdered. And so that's where the gunshots came from. They had been shot in the head. And so it was 4 women, and then there were, the families there also, and they had also been murdered. And so I don't know to the extent of, the torture, if any of that happened, but there was definite, according to Alan, definite signs of, raping. The women had been undressed, or their clothes had been torn, and, they were definitely shot afterwards. And so from my understanding, or, putting everything together, that's kind of when he decided he didn't want to be a part of this anymore. And so he said personal reasons, left, and then kind of what led to me being here today.
Did he mention any of the names of the other soldiers in the story? Or?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I know the name of his captain,
Okay.
and I got in touch with his captain, like I said, when I was trying to find out where Alan was, but I don't know the names of any of them.
Okay.
Do you know if the captain was there, since you do know his name, if you know if he was there during this event?
I mean, I would assume that he was. Alan just had written in the article that it was his whole, and I don't even know what they call it, but his whole troop
Okay.
that went out. And he didn't mention that anyone stayed behind, or I don't know which men participated in the events that happened, or if it was just one person, or if it was everybody, I don't know.
Right. That kind of actually answers part of my next question, but you said you don't know exactly who performed the acts, but do you know if Alan would have any information about this that he's maybe keeping, or?
I don't know. I can't really get in touch with
Okay.
Alan. We've been, before, when everything was okay and he'd send you a story every couple weeks, it was through a secured military web, an email account that he
Okay.
had. And so I've been trying to reach out to that, but he hasn't been contacting me or anything. The latest I've heard from him, I hadn't heard from him for 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden this package
Right.
shows up on my door. So I don't know what else he knows, or if you can find out anything. I don't even know if he's still alive.
What I kind of want to do now is maybe go through, make sure that everything that we have is accurate, because obviously this is upsetting to you, and maybe as we go through, if you think of anything else that you want to tell us, it would be a good time to, pipe in. You're welcome to interrupt me and make sure that everything's accurate, okay?
Okay.
So your newspaper has been printing stories from Alan and other military members for a while. You didn't hear from Alan for 3 weeks, and then you received a package on your door containing evidence, including an audio recording and a 6-page article detailing events that happened in Afghanistan when members from his, as you put it, troops raided a village. And soon after that, 3 government workers came to your house and were very scary, as you said, and you gave them one of the copies of the recording, but not telling them that there was other copies or the article that Alan gave you. You've been in touch with Alan's supervisor, who's the captain in Afghanistan, and he denied these events and said that he would look into them, but still hasn't gotten back to you about any of the facts. And you haven't spoken to him since then?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So your main goal, what is your main goal out of this? Do you want to run the story or?
I mean, I believe that the story is true,
Okay.
and so I feel very strongly about, you know, the integrity of my journalistic abilities. And so I want to run a story that I think is important to my community. And my community happens to be, you know, the military. You know, pretty much all military are the people that support my newspaper. I want to run the story, but not at the risk of my life. I don't know what
Right.
kind of danger, if any, I'm in. I don't want to get in trouble with the government for running a story that could or could not be true, but in my opinion is true. I've thought about selling the story to a bigger newspaper so that they can deal with it, but it's such an amazing, not amazing in a good way story, it's such an enlightening story, and I don't want to miss out on, you know, being that journalist who uncovered something
Right.
like this. So I'm not really sure what my goal is. I'm kind of scared, I'm kind of confused, and I just really want some advice, and if anything, on what I should do, or, you know, in your legal opinion, what I should not do.
Okay. So, when you go to write the story, do you plan on like mentioning anything about like the name of the troop, like any of the, or is it just going to be pretty basic about there was an incident with a troop and this happened? Do you plan on keeping it pretty basic, or?
I mean, that's definitely something for me to consider. Normally when I run military member stories from Afghanistan, they send me their papers, their stories, and there's very little editing that I have to do because I want it to be a raw, true story. You know, grammatical errors and things of that nature all fixed, but and I always put, you know, that this was submitted to me by private captain or whoever it might have been, and I always list their name. And so this particular story, I don't want to take credit. I obviously didn't write this story. I'm not in Afghanistan, so I would definitely put Alan's name normally. And so this situation definitely seems different.
Okay, well, if we'd like to talk about the law, I think that it is important that you do use Alan's name because he's the person that has the first-hand knowledge. And I think that it's going to be, they could bring up, you know, charges of like, you know, defamatory in nature and you know, not knowing these things, like making it up pretty much. They could say that you're falsifying. So I think it is important to use his name. I mean, that's a risk, but he's obviously willing to take the risk because he dropped the audio recording and the article off at your door. And so that's something that to consider in that area. I don't know how deep like the article that you have goes into like who the people are, but that would be something like to not put in their names. I mean,
It doesn't
unless he
give any
has
names
Okay.
of
Okay.
anything. And I can double check.
Okay.
As far as I remember, Alan's name is the only name that's actually in the article.
Yeah, there is a reporter's privilege that you have under the First Amendment, freedom of speech. There's a reporter's privilege, but which entitles you to print the truth, and to the extent that you know that is the truth, and so that's something that does protect you from that. This is a government agency, and so there's kind of like a gray area there. So, but because you have the story from an actual military person, it seems that this would be allowed. Not sure if you have anything to add to that.
Just in keeping with what Casey said, did Alan give you any, tell you anything that he didn't want his name published, or that he was like kind of running from this?
No. All he said is, in the box that he had given me with this information, all the note said was, please run this story, it's important.
Okay.
And so that was, and I mean, he signed
Yeah.
his name, so I know it was from him.
So like Casey said, I mean, as long as he didn't specify like that he, you know, absolutely didn't want his name associated with the story, then, you know, maybe he did accept that risk. And obviously seems like he's left that area and could possibly, you know, since you haven't heard from him, possibly is trying to not be known where he is. So that might be something that we need to consider.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it seems really, like, it's really, evidential because they sent people to your house over it. So it's
That's
something
crazy,
that they're
right?
trying.
Yeah.
You think they're trying to scare me to not run it?
It would seem that way, but I mean, that's not really like an opinion that we can give, but it would seem that that's kind of what they're just, they don't want you to run the story, I mean, I guess it puts the military in a bad light, so that would really understand why they would not want you to run it. I mean, I know that you understand that.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
And a lot of people were involved, you know, since you said you didn't really know exactly who was involved, if the captain was involved, or, you know, how many military members or even other units were involved in this, then if the government, you know, did find out and realize that, you know, there was a mistake over there, then they would, you know, want to correct it on their own. Or opposite is if everyone was involved and they did know, then obviously they don't want that coming to light. So it could be a reason why they wanted to collect the evidence from you, make sure that there was nothing left.
So can I get in trouble since I made copies of it and I only gave them one copy? Can I get in trouble? You know, whether or not I run the story, can I get in trouble for only giving them one copy instead of everything?
I don't think so. I think it's, you know, obviously it was given to you, it's your property. You gave them what you know, had at the time, and you just didn't give them, you know, the other copies. Are they stored in another place?
Yeah, I mean, they're in, you know, one's in my office, one's in a
Okay.
safe, you know, a safe that I have at another location, so.
Yeah. So I think as long as, you know, in keeping with us keeping it confidential, you would also need to be keeping this confidential and wouldn't want to be telling anybody that you have other materials.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since Casey went over a little bit of the law, and we did say that, you know, maybe we need to look into a few things as far as when would be a good time to run the story, and obviously your safety is important to all of us. We wouldn't want you to do anything that would jeopardize your physical safety or those of the members of your newspaper. So we would kind of have to look into a few things just to make sure that we have all the facts as well, so we can guide you the best we can. But some things that we want to go over is, you know, your alternatives to do with this story. One would be obviously not run it, which you seem to really want to, so maybe that's not the best option for you. Another one is to run the story and maybe you find out a few more facts beforehand. You know, if you are able to get in touch with the captain or other members of that specific unit to kind of collaborate the story. I know the captain wasn't really willing to say anything, obviously, that would hurt himself. So maybe if you got other people who were maybe on Alan's same level, you said he was a private, so if you got other privates to kind of collaborate the story, that might be a route to go.
Okay.
Instead of trying to constantly contact the captain, because obviously that got you into the situation with the government agents.
Right.
So, so we just want to look into a few things. Is there anything else that you maybe can think of? I know this is a nerve-wracking time, and is there anything else you can think of maybe?
I mean, the only other thing really is, you know, my newspaper, I run stories twice a week.
Okay.
And so I run them Sundays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
So I would like to, if I do decide to put this out, in whatever form, adding names or whatever, not adding, but leaving Alan's
Right.
name or not, I'd like to print it sooner rather than later before anybody else gets wind of the story or has an opportunity to put out something saying anything that will discredit my story.
Right.
So I would really like to get information back from you guys, or find a solution to this as soon as possible so that I can run it soon.
I think another thing to maybe look for is, along with the names that you're gonna kind of proofread to make sure there were no other names in there, to not have any obscenities or any sort of words that would not be appropriate for a newspaper to publish. I'm sure you know a lot of those rules anyway, since you've been doing this for a while.
Right. Right. If there's any
right.
profanity, it's
Right.
Taken out.
Okay. Okay, so we would want that to be taken out. Generally, to kind of go back to the law, sometimes speech can be regulated if the regulation furthers an important or substantial government interest. Obviously, the government is involved here, so that could be something that comes back to you. But obviously, our Constitution and our laws here in the States and laws that apply to the military aren't to go in and hurt civilians. That's not part of our laws in the military. So we would definitely have to look into maybe some of the military laws that would apply here.
Okay.
We've talked basically about the Constitution and statutory or state laws that apply here, but we might have to look into some things that apply to the military. Okay,
perfect.
Obviously, we know you want to run this as soon as possible, so if you can just look over this fee agreement that we have.
Sure.
It states that we work on a retainer fee for this sort of situation, and our retainer fee is a $1,500 fee. We work at an hourly rate of $150. That's deducted from the retainer fee. You're welcome to look that over. Also look it over with another attorney. You don't have to specify what your relationship with us is as far as the confidential information we talked about, but you're welcome to go look to another attorney just to look over that fee agreement. If you agree to it, you need to initial the first page and sign and date the bottom of the second page and return it to us. We're welcome to provide you with a copy of it for your own records.
Sure. I mean, if it's okay, I'll just do it
Okay.
immediately. I mean, you guys were
Yes.
great. You've given me a lot of help, and you guys seem to understand kind of the stress that I'm
Right.
feeling. So if this will get the process going
Yes.
sooner, I would absolutely sign it.
As soon as we get that in the $1,500
Thank
deposit,
you.
then we can get started on this right away. And basically your next steps is if you can bring in a copy of that audio tape and any information that you have from Alan,
Thank you.
Thank you.
any information that you have from Alan, and maybe past stories that you feel are similarly related to this story, so we kind of get a feel of what his work usually is, then that would be really helpful. So if you can get that to us in the next 3 days, if we don't hear from you, then we'll call you and just make sure that you can find that information. Okay?
Okay, sure, definitely.
I would also suggest that if you are working on what you're going to actually submit, are you going to submit what he gave you, or are you going to take some from the audio and kind of add that in before you publish it? I mean, if you are starting to do a write-up of that already, even if you use it or not use it, that would be something that we would want to see as well. Just so
Okay,
we can
sure.
see what it would be like, when you actually put it into the
Sure. So
paper.
even before I actually submit an article, if I decide to do so, you guys can kind of look it over
Yeah.
before
Yes.
I submit
Just to
it,
make
let
sure.
me know.
Yes.
Just to make
Okay.
sure, like we talked about, that there weren't some things like categories of speech that could
Yeah.
be in violation.
More of a protection
Okay.
for you,
Mhm.
not that we're, really, wanting to see your story before it goes out or
No,
anything.
Yeah, we're
Just
not
for
here to
your
edit.
protection.
We're not here to edit or anything like that. We're
Right.
sure you have that under control, but just to make sure that we can help you the best we can and make sure that, the most that we know, the more that we know, the more we can help you.
Okay,
Okay.
sure. No, that sounds great. Thank you for offering
Mhm.
that.
Okay, well, here's my card.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Casey and I are available to you. You're welcome to call us at any time. Since you have the both of us available to you, if one can't get back to us, if one can't get back to you, the other one will. Usually we have a a policy of within 1 business day. So even if you leave a message with our secretary, we'll be sure to get that, okay?
Okay, great.
And your contact information would be best at your home number or the newspaper?
Either one is fine.
Okay.
The home number would probably be best at nighttime.
Okay, okay. Well, we'll be sure to get in contact with you, and we'll be looking into this in the next 3 days. So.
Okay, great. Thanks so
All right.
much. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
help.
It was very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
for coming
guys
in.
too. Thank
It was
you.
nice to meet you.
Thank
Look
you.
forward
I'll
to
see you
working with you.
soon.
We walked her out.